Hi there. I've been talking about varnishing all week, and I talked about using solvent-based varnishes, which means that you've got to clean your brush up with Turps, which is a horrible job, and I try and avoid it as much as I possibly can. So I've got this ninja trick for you today of how to avoid having to clean up brushes with Turps. So the best thing, once you know this trick, is you hardly ever have to go through a tub of Turps and dry it off and Turps the brush and clean it all up ever again. So I've managed to not have to clean my solvent brushes for about 3 years now, and I haven't thrown any away either from having them all dry out. So the trick is this little guy. This is your friend. It's probably got the text reversed, but aluminium foil, and what you do is once you've finished brushing with the solvent-based varnish, you sort of dry off the brush a little bit, but leave a little bit of the varnish in the bristles, not too much, not so it's dripping or anything, but just a little bit. And then you wrap up the brush in foil. And I've got this particular way of wrapping it up, which I'll show you in the video on the dojo at the Zen Art website. Step by step, I'll show you how to actually do that. But if you wrap these brushes up so it's airtight, then you can pop them in a fridge and keep them for weeks and weeks and sometimes months without the brush drying out, and you can then avoid having to wash the brush up in Turps, which is really cool, I reckon. So that's my tip of the day. If you'd like to see how to do it step by step, then go and visit the dojo at zenartart.com for this ninja tip step by step and a whole pile of other tips. Please help other people to see this video by liking, commenting or sharing below. I would really appreciate that. Thanks for watching. Hi there. Today I'm just about to start this pet portrait. This is a 16-inch square pet portrait for a client for a secret Christmas gift, and I'm just thought that I might just show you this little tip about cleaning your brushes. I'm surprised about how many people who come along to my oil classes haven't actually seen one of these magical little devices before. This is what they look like. It's, I can't point the camera down, so I've just got to show you this little dish here. It's a little stainless steel, it's called a stainless steel brush washer. What's groovy about it is you can fill up the tub with Turps. I like using the odorless solvent so it doesn't smell and stink out the studio. And the odorless solvent doesn't evaporate very quickly either. So because you're not smelling the fumes fuming off, it's actually sitting there in the dish and not evaporating on you. So that lasts a long time. But what I love about this is it's got this groovy little basket in it. I'll just pull this one up. So I've cleaned a brush on there so you can see there's a bit of a mark on it. There's a bit of sludge on top of that basket there at the moment. And there's a fair bit of sludge sitting at the bottom of this dish of Turps as well. And the great thing about that basket is that it lifts that little grid off the bottom of the pot, so that when I brush my brush over that grid of mesh, it cleans the brush really well without stirring up that sludge that's sitting right on the bottom of the pot. So here's a clean basket that I can show you. This is what it looks like. It's got this little rim around the edge that lifts this mesh up off the bottom, so the sludge can sit on the bottom of the pot. And when you stir your brush across there, it doesn't actually lift up the sludge from the base of the pot, which means that you're getting your brushes a lot cleaner. So in one of my previous tips, I was talking about using synthetic brushes versus hog bristle brushes. Hog bristle brushes, like these ones, the chunking white natural bristles, these ones are really tough and they can take a fair bit of scrubbing. So when this is plunged in underneath the bottom of your basket of Turps, you can afford to scrub across here fairly strongly, and you probably won't hurt that brush too much. You might wear off a little bit of the tip, but you're not going to destroy the bristles totally. So these brushes are designed for scrubbing. You can scrub onto the canvas and you can scrub while you're cleaning it on one of these baskets. But these lovely synthetic brushes, you don't want to do too much scrubbing on this basket underneath the Turps. So what happens is if you scrub this synthetic brush too much on the basket, and this one has probably had a little bit of that happening to it. Not sure if you can see that, but the bristles are now starting to flare out a fair bit. They're not keeping together in a nice, what I call blade brush. So when they start flaring out like that, often it's because there's been too much scrubbing happening on these synthetic bristles. And if you think of these as being a sort of a form of plastic, when you scrub metal across them, they're going to curl up like curling ribbon. So you want to avoid that. You have to be very, very gentle when you're cleaning the synthetic bristles on one of these baskets in one of these dishes. So one big tip I can tell you about when you buy one of these stainless steel brush washers, and they're very affordable. They only cost sort of between $10 and $20 US or Australian, about the same. And when you fill up your Turps in there, make sure you fill it up fairly full so that your bristles are completely underneath the Turps when you're rubbing them on that basket at the bottom. But the thing is, this is my magic tip for you, is, I'll just grab the little device that I always put away. So these baskets come with this little bridge thing that goes across the top of it. So I'll just slot this, and I have to be very careful doing this because of all the Turps in there. But there's two little holes on either side of the basket here where you can put this little bit of wire in there and press it down carefully in there. You can see the trouble with this is when you've got a full pot of Turps, it's a bit of an issue to do this carefully so that you don't actually slush Turps everywhere. So you can actually push those down a fair way into the basket, and then you've got this little bridge across the top here. It's just kind of a spring. This is designed so that you can leave your brushes sitting in the Turps. So in the US you might call that solvent. So this brush, if it's loaded up with paint and I'm in a mad rush and I don't want to clean it, but I know that I can't leave it with the paint in it, I can drop it into the fluid in there, and then I just kind of jam the brush handle into that spring. Now it's a good idea to lift it back up just a little bit so that the bristles aren't curved and pushing down on the basket. They're just suspended in the fluid, and that means that your brush won't ever dry out. It's sitting underneath the Turps. So you could leave all your brushes sitting there when you're not using them, but I prefer not to do that, and I'll tell you why. It's just too easy to accidentally knock the top of this thing when you're in a mad flurry painting. You knock the top of this thing and the whole thing goes over, and whoosh, you've got Turps everywhere. So whenever I buy these, I have a personal preference to not leave brushes in fluids either. To make brushes last a lifetime, I think it's better to gently dry them and lay them down flat. So what I do when I buy one of these things is I very carefully take this out, and then I just leave it aside. So I just use the dish just like this without the big tall bridge, because that's too risky for me. If I bump it, the whole dish goes everywhere. So the great thing about this is you can pull it out and clean it anytime you want. Just wipe it off with a rag or paper towel to get all the sludge out. And of course, most people in class from our Learn to Paint Oils class have learnt about decanting your Turps into another pot so that you let it rest overnight so that you've got clear fluid on top. Pour the clear fluid out onto a separate pot that you can reuse, and then clean the sludge out and put it into the bin. So you can clean this dish sort of once a week, but leave the Turps sitting in there for most of the time. So that's the tip for today, is using one of these brush washer tubs. They're brilliant, I love them. The only thing you mustn't ever do is use them for washing up in water, because the water will rust that pot, even though it's stainless steel. So watch out for that one. So if you want to know any more tips, please go to the dojo, dojo.zenartart.com, and there's lots of free videos there to watch and learn from. Thanks for watching.
The biggest thing is washing your brushes. So you just got to get a bit of practice with washing your brushes so you're quick at it, quick but thorough. Because I see beginners just going in the water bucket, they're going swirl, 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 swirl like this. That doesn't get a brush clean. Just swirling a little whirlpool in your little water pot, just going round and round like that doesn't get the brush clean. The paint is all clogged up inside the bristles up here, really close to the ferrule. This is the ferrule here. F-E-R-R-U-L-E, ferrule. There's paint clagged right close to the base of that ferrule there. So you've got to be able to smack this bristle around and move them around a lot in the water to get that bit of paint out. So I recommend making a little duck's foot at the bottom of the pond. There, smack. So you go whack, 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 and then turn the brush over, whack, 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 on the bottom of the pond of water, and you'll see the colour just explode out of it. If you're in a rush with watercolour, you only really need to do that, and then you can rest your brushes. The paint's not going to dry on your brushes. You can always do a soap clean later. But with acrylics, you must not leave paint in the brushes. And I also say don't leave your brush sitting in a tub of water either, or a jar. That's even worse, because when the water soaks up through the bristles here into the wood inside the ferrule, and it soaks into the wood inside here. And what happens is the beautiful solid enamel that they paint on here, the wood inside swells up and it cracks your paint all along there. As soon as that paint's cracked, the water seeps in underneath the paint. These bits of paint just flake off. I did it to 2 brushes early on in my career, and I said never again, because they were really nice brushes, and now holding them is horrible because it's got half paint, half wood. So don't ever leave your brush sitting in a tub of water, because the water soaks right up and destroys the handle, believe it or not. But you've got to wash it with soap and water at the end of the session, because if the paint dries in there, you either throw the brush away, which I say to everyone, don't throw it away, because there's this new amazing stuff called Incredible Brush Cleaner, which you can restore your brush even if there's dry paint caked in it. It's amazing stuff. I keep a bottle in the dojo, I keep a bottle in my studio. There's been times when I have to rush away from the end of a painting session and leave my brushes because I was due in a class or something. I accidentally left my brushes there and they dried, and some of my best, biggest, most expensive brushes had paint clagged in them. I thought I'm gonna have to throw away 20 brushes, but I managed to save 19 out of the 20. With that amazing, incredible brush cleaner is the name of it. It sounds stupid, like you go, oh yeah, sure, that's just marketing. But it actually does work, believe it or not. So don't throw away brushes that have got dry paint. A Ninja art tip. This is a carving tool. It doesn't matter whether it was a brush or a carving tool, whatever. But I always say to students, don't ever leave your brushes sitting in water. Here's the reason why. This is a student has left this in a bucket. This beautiful pearlescent paint that protects the wood on the handle has now all cracked off. Can you see this? So all you need is to leave this sitting in water. The water soaks into the wood expands, and then all of this cracks off. So now this paint is just, you can just peel it off with your fingernail. So this is just a really visual example of this is what happens if you do leave your brushes sitting in water. It's a bit sad, isn't it? It's quite, you know, some people don't really care about their brushes, but I can feel that when I'm using this brush. I can feel it on my hand, and I'm worried that the paint's going to crack and drop into my painting as well. So really the only way around this to fix it is to sand it all back and repaint it so it's sealed and